Peace to the 12. So it happened again where I'm actually working on a video about the Amalekites, but I had Amazing Lucas on in the background, and once again he talked about uh, the thought process of the Hebrew Israelites and the fact that we're telling you that this place is going to be destroyed and there's no saving it. And he says that's a logical conclusion to come to, or something along those lines. So I think I rewinded it to the part where he says it. We'll see. If not, I'll have to edit it out or whatever. But I just wanted to put that in there, and then I'm going to get some scriptures and go into it again like I did yesterday. So, let's get to it. Hold on one second.
Said there's an issue with how to handle these people. But if you're talking to people who haven't read that or don't know what you're talking about, then you're talking to a brick wall.
That's how it is with us with the scriptures. But nonetheless.
So once you understand really the conditioning that has happened to black people, it gets to a point where you go the warden route, or you go the big dog route, where it's very much, I give up. I'm just waiting for the meteor. Or you go what's his name, Chuck's route, the Hebrew Israelite route. I don't know if it's Hebrew Israelite.
Or you go the Hebrew Israelite route.
Where they're like, hey, we're doomed. We're just waiting for death and destruction. That's what we're doing. And it's not, I don't see that as a negative. It's a very realistic outcome.
Do you see that? I don't see it as a negative. I see it as a realistic outcome. It is a realistic outcome. And let me correct you real quick, brother. We don't see it as a we're all doomed. No, we believe we're going to be redeemed, right? We believe we're going to be saved out of this bullshit. But this system that everybody puts their hopes in, it's destined to fail, and it was created to keep us at the very bottom. That's the bottom line. All right, but we haven't given up. No, we have hope. All right, we have hope. We know through faith in the scriptures that we're going to get the hell out of here. All right, and we're going to get our own that way. And, I can do a whole video on that in of itself, but what I'm going to do is get into the scriptures about, this place is destined to fail. You can't trust in Egypt. You can't trust in these people, man. They show you time and time again that they don't like you. They don't want to give you anything. I hear these Negroes all the time say, well, how come we can't get reparations, but these guys got reparations and these guys got reparations? Because, nigga, they don't want to give you it. If they did, they would have gave it to you like they gave it to everybody else. Isn't it interesting that you don't get what everybody else got? It's almost like you're different. It's almost like you're in a different predicament than everybody else. And that's the reality, man. That's the reality. We're up under these curses. And this place got to go for us to get what's ours. Like the scriptures say, what? They're going to vomit up the riches. Everything they stole is going to be gotten back. Anyways, man. I'm gonna get into that in my own video when I do the scriptures on this. So I'll see y'all post edit. Peace. Peace to the 12, man. I'm a little later than anticipated. A lot of stuff came up. I was busy doing other stuff. Y'all know how it is with life and all that. But anyways, man, here's the part 2 video that I promised when I dropped the part 3. As y'all see the title. It says Amazing Lucas and the Prophets of Doom. It sounds like like one of them Wu-Tang albums or something. Like Amazing Lucas and the Prophets of Doom. But anyway, or like a rap group or something. But yeah, y'all heard what he said in the video. I'm gonna put it in the editing process. I'm gonna put it before this video about him saying that we have a logical conclusion or something along those lines. And yeah, we do. But what I'm going to do now in this video for the people watching, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about how we shouldn't trust in the system. The scriptures tell us not to. I'm going to talk about how I'm going to go loosely into the curses. I'm not going to go too much into that because I'm going to do a whole nother video on the whole curses. And I'm gonna also go into what we should do in this captivity, because someone's probably will ask, well then what are we supposed to do? I'm gonna go into that, and I'm gonna talk about the rise our rise is predicated on the fall of our enemies. And at the end of this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you guys a couple of books that prove the so-called African Americans or the Israelites. Have a bunch of books for you guys, for anyone that's still doubting what I'm saying. Yeah. And the reason that I'm focusing on the so-called African Americans for this video is because Amazing Lucas is an African American and his audience is primarily so-called African Americans. I've already done other videos on the Native Americans, so on and so forth, that I'll link in the video in the description box if you guys are interested in that. So anyways, without further ado, let's get into it. Let's see how far I've been rambling for 2 minutes. Let's go. So yeah, do not put your trust in this system because it hates you and was designed to keep you at the bottom, which is true. That could make a whole damn video on that within of itself. But I'm going to loosely go into that on the scriptures, right? Let's go to Psalms chapter 62 and verse 10. It says, trust not in oppression, and become not vain in robbery. If riches increase, set not your heart upon them. So don't trust in oppression, man. Don't trust in these people that oppress you. That's just the craziest thing ever, man. All right? Do not trust in oppression. All right? I'll tell you why you shouldn't trust in oppression. I have historical examples on why you shouldn't trust in oppression. Check this out. This is from Google. Were slaves promised 40 acres and a mule? Now, you've probably heard somebody, I'm sure, if you've been on the online spaces, or if you have an old relative that's familiar with our history after slavery. You've probably heard someone say, where's my 40 acres and a mule? Now, where does that saying come from? That saying comes from the fact that we were promised 40 acres and a mule, and spoiler alert, they didn't give us it. We didn't get it. All right? So, anyway, look at this Google. Were slaves promised 40 acres and a mule? Check this out. It says, yes, formerly enslaved people were promised 40 acres and a mule through General Sherman's Special Field Order number 15 in 1865. A significant post-Civil War initiative to provide land for economic independence. But the promise was largely broken when President Andrew Johnson returned the land to former Confederate owners, making it a symbol of unfilled reparations and systemic economic injustice. So you know what he said? Why the hell would I give these N-words some land, and I can just give it to the good old boys who we had a minor disagreement with? So he gave the land back to the Confederates. Why? You know why? Because they didn't give a damn about them slaves. That's the answer. Open-ended answer. They didn't give a damn about them slaves. They'd rather give money to the people that they would rather give money to the people that seceded, right? Committed treason and went to war with them and tried to break up the Union. They'd rather give them money than your black ass. Keep that in mind. And they don't want to give you no land or no mule. And they don't want you to get no economic opportunity. So why would you trust in oppression? It's foolish to do from the get-go. All right? Anyway. Meeting with black leaders in January 1865, General William T. Sherman met with black community leaders in Savannah, Georgia, who emphasized land is crucial for freedom and self-sufficiency. It is crucial for freedom and self-sufficiency. All right? And this is an aside, but you guys should look up redlining. I might do a video on it. But there's a reason why you have all these so-called minority groups having their own stores and selling it to Negroes. All right? There's a reason for that. All right? Redlining. They didn't want to give you a business opportunity. I'm gonna do a video on redlining when I get into this whole more into trust not in oppression for a whole nother video, but I'm keeping it brief. Sherman issued this order, setting aside confiscated Confederate land along the coast for black families and 40-acre plots, with the Army lending mules to help them farm. All right, but then what happened? There was a presidential reversal. After President Lincoln's assassination, President Andrew Johnson pardoned former Confederates and returned the land to them. I wonder why. I wonder why that happened right after old boy got his brains blown out. It's almost like, it's almost like Andrew Johnson might have had something to do with it. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But it was a short-lived implementation. While some land was distributed, most was reclaimed by white owners by late 1865, displacing the black families who had begun settling it. The phrase 40 acres and a mule endures as a powerful symbol of the government's failure to provide economic justice and reparations, contributing to persistent racial wealth gaps. Yeah, and it's still persistent to this day. So yeah, why the hell would you trust in oppression? But wait, I have another example on why trusting in the in these people to do right by you is foolish and idiotic. I have another example, something that happened to another group of people. Who is that? The North American Indian, aka the Native Americans, right? Check this out. This is from Google. How many Indian treaties were broken? Let's find out. How many Indian treaties were broken? Well, the U.S. government made over 500 treaties and agreements with Native American tribes between 1778 and 1871. And nearly all were violated or broken in some way. Let me repeat that. Over 500 treaties, nearly all were violated or broken in some way, impacting hundreds of thousands of acres of land and countless promises for resources, sovereignty, and protection. While the exact number of broken treaties is difficult to pinpoint due to their widespread nature, historians and indigenous advocates agree that the vast majority of these foundational documents, like the Fort Laramie Treaty, were ultimately dishonored, leading to ongoing legal battles and calls for justice. Yeah, I remember when I was in school. I've been out of school for a while now, probably 10 plus years. When I was out of school, we learned about how the Cherokee Nation actually took the so-called white man to court. They took him to court, told him what they were doing was unjust. They were stealing their land. They took him to court. They won the case, and then guess what happened? The so-called white man stole their shit anyway. All right, the court didn't matter. All right, so all this civility and all that, pointless. Waste of time. All right? Anyway, key figures and facts. Around 370 to over 500 treaties and agreements were made. Nearly all of these were broken, with sources stating over 500 were violated. In 1871, Congress ended formal treaty making, though agreements continued. What were examples of the broken promises? Land cessions. Tribes ceded vast territories for promised reservations, but the U.S. often failed to provide the land or resources. Yeah, actually, go look at a reservation to now in 2026. All right, they're down bad. All right, they're down bad. They're extremely impoverished. All right, it's just like no different than a ghetto or a hood. All right, when you look into that, or for some of you that have been there, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Promises of food, education, and health care were frequently unmet, leading to starvation and hardship. Right? The Indian Removal Act violated existing treaties by forcing tribes from their ancestral lands. Systemic violations. The pattern of broken treaties reflects a systemic failure of uphold commitments, often driven by settler expansion and land hunger. Yeah, like the scriptures say in Habakkuk, right? He's a proud man, neither keepeth at home, who enlarged his desire as hell. All right, meaning he's always wanting more, wanting to take more and more and more and more and more resources. Look what they're doing in Venezuela, right? Look what they're doing in so-called the Gaza, right? Anyway, look what's happening in Ukraine right now. But you know, I can go on and on about that. Let's go to Lamentations 4:17. More scriptures on this. As for us, our eyes as yet failed for our vain help. In our watching, we have watched for a nation that could not save us. All right, this is what I tell you. We cannot trust not, like I told you, trust not in oppression. We can't trust these people. These nations can't save us, man. They are totally fine with us being in the position that we're in. As a matter of fact, a lot of them benefit off of it, and a lot of them are happy that we're in this position. When they see somebody get killed by the police, a lot of them are happy. Good, one less N word. That's what they say, right? When they see us in all of these predicaments, they don't care. You think they give a damn? I'm gonna let you know they don't. If they did, they would have been did something. Anyway, read that again. Lamentations 4:17. As for us, our eyes as yet failed for our vain help in our watching. We have watched for a nation that could not save us. These nations are not going to save you. All right, Yasharallah. I'm speaking to you Israelites. These nations are not going to save you. Okay? We are the poorest. We are a poorest race in America. All right, check this out. Google poorest race in America. American Indians, like I just went into them Native Americans, right? American Indians / Alaska Natives and black people consistently, meaning this is every year, consistently, or another word I should say is annually, experience the highest poverty rates in the United States. often significantly exceeding rates for Hispanic, Asian, and white populations, with Native Americans frequently having the highest percentage living below the poverty line, according to the data from sources like National Equity Atlas and PovertyUSA.org. So the American Indians and the so-called black man were consistently the highest rate of poverty. American Indians have faced the highest poverty rates, with some data showing over 20% living below the poverty level and even higher rates in high poverty neighborhoods. Black Americans consistently have the second highest poverty rates, often around double that of white Americans. See that? Double that of white Americans, and experience significant disparities in wealth. Hispanics also experience high poverty rates than white and Asian populations. And it doesn't matter if you're in a red state or a blue state. A lot of our people are below the poverty line and they're living in terrible conditions. Okay? If you don't believe me, go drive to your nearest hood. Go drive to your nearest reservation. Right? Go see what I'm talking about. Some of these places, man, don't even got running water. All right? Hey, man, look at Flint, Michigan, man. Look at the Flint, Michigan crisis back in the Obama times. I think it was the Obama times. Or maybe it was Trump's first presidency. Anyway, go to the Flint, Michigan, right? Where the water, the water was not damn drinkable, man. Guess who was in Flint, Michigan? All right. Spoiler alert. It wasn't Chad, Todd, and Josh. All right. Anyway. Now let's get one more scripture on this topic. Proverbs 3:31. Envy thou not the oppressor and choose none of his ways. Because we have, like I said, our people are in economic, what's the word? Decline, I should say. A lot of our people are impoverished, right? I went over that. I went over the lands that we were promised and we weren't given. The resources we were promised and not given. I went over the Indian treaties that were broken. Now, I said in Proverbs 3:31, if you're not thou oppressor and choose none of his ways. Because see, what do our people try to do? They try to assimilate. They try to speak more quote unquote proper. They try to dress the part. They try to cater to the system that most of you would call what? White supremacy. Right? And it doesn't benefit us. And that word is they've coined a term for it. It's known as respectability politics. All right, what is respectability politics? Well, let's ask Google. Respectability politics is a strategy where marginalized groups adopt the norms and behaviors of the dominant culture, which examples would be dress, speech to gain acceptance, reduce prejudice, and achieve social mobility, but it's criticized for placing the burden on the oppressed, reinforcing harmful stereotypes, and failing to challenge systemic inequality. Coined by Evelyn Brooks, it aims to refute negative stereotypes by presenting oneself as worthy of respect by dominant standards, yet often leads to internal policing, shame, and ignores the root cause of oppression as the goalposts of respectability are set by the dominant group. Absolutely. It says less of shame. Yeah, you have a lot of people ashamed of their own people or so-called cultural norms. Are like, oh man, that's too black, that's too ghetto, that's too whatever. Oh, you have a black-sounding name. You hear this all the time, right? That's people catering to respectability politics. And I'm gonna give you a spoiler alert that most of you already know. That shit don't work. Respectability politics doesn't work. You're still an N-word. Look at what's happening to Vivek Ramaswamy. He's not even one of our people. He's not even an Israelite. Vivek Ramaswamy, so-called Indian from South Asia, right? He fits the part. He wears his little Texas jacket and a cowboy hat, and he tells people racism doesn't exist. They done bullied his ass off the internet. The nigga done deleted almost all his social media because they done kept calling him all type of slurs, telling him to go back to his country, man. So all that respectability politics didn't matter. It didn't matter if he was it didn't matter if he was out here praising the false god Shiva, or if he was saying that he believed in Jesus Christ, the fake white Jesus whose name is not Jesus Christ. It wouldn't matter. They would treat his ass the same, because what it is they don't like him because of who he is. Doesn't matter if he's wearing a suit. Doesn't matter if he's wearing an American flag jersey. Doesn't matter. So respectability politics doesn't work. Look at Brandon Tatum. I'll give you another example. Look at Brandon Tatum, right? Oh, the black ignorant people. You know, the stupid black people, they do this and do that, right? As soon as he went against the narrative where they started calling him N-word this, N-word that, called him a slave to the Amalekites, all right? The so-called Caucasian Jewish men, they was calling him all type of names, N-word this, right? Nick Fuentes made fun of him. Well, shit, man. Why? Because it doesn't matter how much you cater to these people. They don't give a fuck. That's the point. They don't care. Right? So, yeah, respectability politics doesn't work. Core concepts. Marginalized individuals conform to mainstream standards to appear less threatening or different to the dominant group, hoping to foster greater acceptance. Look at these celebrities. They go and live in a so-called white man's neighborhood. They still get the police called on them. They don't care, man. Right? Uplift. It's linked to uplift politics, focusing on individual behavior reform as a pathway to broader societal change, targeting both the marginalized group and the dominant culture. And individualism doesn't work in general. Individualism is a failed concept in trying to improve your people. All right, by definition. Look at all these rich people. Look at Jay-Z, all these so-called black billionaires. Jay-Z, Kanye West, yada yada. What have they done to improve our status? Fucking nothing. All right, so individualism is not your way out of this either. Not that I'm saying we should depend on them in the first place. I'm just letting you know. Historical roots prominent in black American movements, particularly among black women in the late 19th and 20th century as a response to racist characters. Yeah, what do? Oh, don't name her Shaniqua, right? Put on a wig, all right? Get your hair to look like the so-called white woman's, right? All of these things, and they still don't want to hire you, right? Our people are they still leave you leave you for the wolves in the birthing places, as we know. Are for a lot of our women, they die in childbirth. You know, that's a whole video I could do. But yeah, point is, respectability politics doesn't work. All right, I'm 17 minutes in, man. I'm about to, this is gonna be a long video. I already know it, man. It is what it is. And for those you don't know, talking about, oh, you got a dress in the speech. Well, guess what? They still hung niggas in suits. Racists hung black men in suits. Google. Historical records of racial terror lynchings in the United States document numerous instances where black men were targeted while dressed in suits, often because their professional appearance and success were viewed as a threat to white supremacy. So let me repeat that again. Historical records say what? Racial terror lynchings in the United States of black men who were targeted in suits. So they didn't care that you were dressed up as a suit. They didn't care that you looked like this. These are some black people from 1948. They didn't care. Look. The Equal Justice Initiative has documented over 4,000 racial terror lynchings between 1877 and 1950. Many victims were targeted for social transgressions, which included being economically successful or well-dressed. So if you had money, or if you were well-dressed, or if you were well-dressed with a lot of money, they didn't give a damn. They would lynch your ass like anybody else. Right? The message of the suit. In the early 20th century, black men frequently wore suits to assert their dignity and citizenship. However, this excellent dress often served as a provocation to racist mobs who sought to punish black individuals for perceived arrogance or for failing to occupy a subservient social position. So they didn't care if you put on a suit, and that shit didn't matter. And guess what? They didn't care if you joined the army, because what's a lot of things other people do? Oh, go join the military. Go fight for your country. You know, America and all this, right? Yeah, a lot of people, guess what? They went to go fight the white man's wars in World War I. In World War II, came home and got their ass put on a rope just like your average Joe Schmo. Right? Look at this. Google. Black World War vets were hung. Check this out. Yes, African American World War I veterans were victims of lynchings, often for perceived offenses like wearing their military uniforms or associating with white women, with prominent examples including L.B. Reed, hanged in Mississippi, Wilbur Little, hanged or beaten in Georgia for wearing his uniform, highlighting the extreme racial violence and discrimination they faced returning home despite their service. That's other names. Look. Uniform as a symbol. Black soldiers wore their uniforms with pride, but white supremacists saw it as an affront, challenging the racial hierarchy and demanding respect. Their service and dignity threatened the established racial order, leading to brutal retaliation. So they didn't care that you fought for your country, quote unquote. They didn't give a shit about that. Alright? They still hung them the same. All right, and now I'm gonna briefly touch on the curses. Like I said, I ain't gonna go too deep in this because I'm gonna do a whole nother video on the curses of Deuteronomy 28. It deserves its own video. But let's go to Deuteronomy 28. Like I said, our people are under the curses. I've said this in my other videos regarding this topic. It's Deuteronomy 28:15. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord Yahweh thy God, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. Because our people forsook the covenant, we're under curses. What are some of the curses? I'm just going to get 3 of them. Just a couple curses that apply to us today. Deuteronomy 28:16. Cursed shalt thou be in the city, and cursed shalt thou be in the field. Right? In the city and the field, doesn't matter. We're impoverished in both. They had lynch mobs in both. They had riots. People got ran out of their neighborhoods. People got their land stolen. I have personal family members that got their land stolen. All right? And we lived in a rural area of the country. All right? Cursed shall thou be in the city, and cursed shall thou be in the field. Let's go Deuteronomy 28:20. The Lord shall send upon thee cursing, vexation, and rebuke, and all that thou settest thy hand unto for to do, until thou be destroyed, and until thou perish quickly, because of the wickedness of thy doings, whereby thou hast forsaken me. Look up all these different instances. I didn't include them in this video because I will when I do the curses video. But there are several instances where our people were prospering. We had our own banks, we had our own businesses. Look at Black Wall Street for one example. And guess what? What did they do? They went and destroyed it. Why? Because we're under the curses, right? You set your hand to do something, it's still going to get destroyed. Let's go to Deuteronomy 28:25. The Lord shall cause thee to be smitten before thine enemies. Thou shalt go out one way against them, and flee 7 ways before them, and shall be removed into all the kingdoms of the earth. And we are scattered among all these people, man. All right? Just speaking about so-called African Americans, right? We are just one group of people that were dispersed upon this hemisphere, all right? You have our people dispersed in Jamaica, Haiti, Brazil, Barbados, all the Caribbean, right? Dominican Republic, so on and so forth. And that, once again, that's only speaking on the so-called West African slave trade. All right, but nonetheless, let's continue, man. Deuteronomy 28:37. You will become a thing of horror, a byword, an object of ridicule among all the peoples where the Lord will drive you. They make fun of us all the time. They make up these things, all George Floyd jokes, Trayvon Martin jokes. Become a thing of horror, all angry black man, all dangerous black man, super predators, a byword, the N-word, darky, all these, all these slurs, bywords. All right, part of the curses. Deuteronomy 28:43 through 48. The stranger that this is 43, verse 43. The stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. And like I showed you guys in the reports, what? I showed you guys what? The American Indians and the so-called black man are consistently in the highest poverty rates. We're at the bottom. All right? Very high, and thou shalt come down very low. He shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail. Sounds familiar, right? Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee, till thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of the Lord Yahweh thy God, to keep his commandments and his statutes which he commanded thee. And they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever. So this is a continual perpetual curse. If our people choose to forsake the Most High, these curses will be upon us, point blank, period. All right. So next question, like I alluded in this video where I said I was going to go through processes of step by step. I went over the curses briefly. Went over the curses briefly in Deuteronomy 28. You can also read about it in Leviticus 26. I went over do not put your trust in the system. Now I'm going to go over to the next question. Someone say, well, what should we do, right? What's our solution? What should we do in this captivity? So what do we do in the captivity? Well, the scriptures tell us what to do in this captivity. I'm going to get a couple that speak on this. Let's go to Jeremiah chapter 29 and verse 4 through 7, right? Check this out. Thus saith the Lord, Yahawah of hosts, the God of Israel, unto all that are carried away captives, whom I have caused to be carried away from Jerusalem unto Babylon. Build ye houses, and dwell in them, and plant gardens, and eat the fruit of them. Right? So it's nothing wrong. Brothers, you should be striving, to get your own house, your own property. Right? Dwell in them, plant your gardens. We should be trying to get into botany. All right? Farming. We should be trying to get our own gardens. We should eat the fruit of them. Take ye wives. Brothers should, get married, and beget sons and daughters, have children. And take wives for your sons, and give your daughters to husbands, that they may bear sons and daughters, that ye may be increased there and not diminished, right? We need to have generations going, all right? And seek the peace of the city, whither I have caused you to be carried away captives, and pray unto the Lord Yahweh for it, for in the peace thereof shall you have peace, right? So seek peace in the city. What I mean by that, or what can we interpret from that? Seek peace in the city. We need to be seeking peace in our neighborhoods. We need to be squashing these petty squabbles, these petty beefs. We need to be squashing that. We need to seek peace upon our neighborhoods so we can dwell amongst ourselves, right? Without any problem. That way, once again, and then in that self, there's less deaths, which means there's more population, which means our population would grow. Things of that nature. These is what people should be striving for, all right? In this captivity. Do whatever we can to make our captivity less stressful. But then again, but in the end of the day, like I said, we're under the curses, and there's only so much you can do because at the end of the day, we are behind enemy lines, so on and so forth. But you can do something. There's always something we can do to improve our lives. Daniel 1 and 3. This is another one. And the king spake unto Ashpenaz, the master of his eunuchs, that he should bring certain of the children of Israel, and of the king's seed, and of the princes, children in whom was no blemish, but well favored, and skillful in all wisdom, and cunning and knowledge, and understanding science, and such as had ability in them to stand in the king's palace, and whom they might teach the learning and the tongue of Chaldeans. So it's no problem with you wanting to strive to be, gain more knowledge, understand sciences, move and function in high places like king's palaces and things like that. No problem with that. And the king appointed them a daily provision of the king's meat and of the wine which he drank, so nourishing them 3 years, that at the end thereof they might stand before the king. I mean, look at Daniel. Daniel was a president. All right, I believe Daniel was the third in command in his own captivity. Daniel wasn't wicked for that. So there's nothing wrong with you brothers seeking that high status, but that's just another thing people can be associated with. And we can go into, and another thing we have to be focusing on is we have to separate ourselves from the customs and traditions of these other people, because they have nothing to do with us. We shouldn't be worried about no damn Christmas or none of that other bullshit. It has nothing to do with us. We have to separate from ourselves. That tells you that multiple times in the scriptures, but I'll get 2 Corinthians 6 and 17. Wherefore, 6 and 17, 2 Corinthians. Wherefore come out from among them, and be ye separate, saith the Lord, and touch not the unclean thing, and I will receive you. All right? So stay away from unclean foods, unclean things. Come out from among them and be ye separate. All right? We're a holy people. Holy means set apart. We have to separate ourselves. You should be able to distinguish us from the rest of the world. All right? That's what we should be able to do. Rather that's through dress, speech, actions, how we conduct ourselves, so on and so forth. Okay, another one that says that, Revelations 18 and 4. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, Come out of her, my people, that you be not partaker of her sins, and that you receive not of her plagues. So we shouldn't be willingly partaking in their sins. Just because they're doing it doesn't mean you have to. All right, come out from among them. It does this multiple times in the scriptures. All right, be separate, be a set apart people. Come out from among them. All right, it's a thing. All right, so that's what we can do in this captivity. There's probably other things I could have included. Brothers could put in the comments, actually, for more information. But this is what I said earlier in the other video, or in the other portion of this video, the Amazing Lucas part, where I said, our rise is tied to the destined fall of Babylon the Great, which is true. All right, that's 2 Ezra 6 and 7, which is found in Apocrypha, which was originally part of the King James Bible, 1611. 2 Ezra 6 and 7. Then answered I and said, What shall be the partaking asunder of the times, or when shall be the end of the first, and the beginning of it that followeth? And he said unto me, From Abraham unto Isaac, when Jacob and Esau were born of him. Jacob's hand held first the hill of Esau. For Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. So after the end of the world, through Esau, Jacob has next. Who is Jacob? Israel, the Israelites. All right? So the collapse of our enemies is hand in hand with our redemption, which doesn't mean that we have to do anything. It's all going to play out naturally. All right, as anyone will tell you, kingdoms fall naturally. All right, and when a kingdom falls naturally, well, ultimately, what happens next? Well, somebody else is crowned. Someone else becomes the next hegemon. Right, the next hegemony, the next power, the next superpower. Right, the next head honcho. So yeah. So for the rest of this video, how much am I? I broke 30 minutes. Okay. So for the rest of this video, I hope you guys could read this, because I just seen that it wasn't straight. But for the rest of this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a couple of books that proves African Americans are Israelites. All right, because somebody might be saying in this video, if you're still watching, well, yeah, you said this, you showed the scriptures, but how do we know we're Israelites? Blah blah blah. I hear this shit all the time. All the brothers that's been in this thing, y'all hear this all the time. Well, I'm going to give some undeniable books that prove this. All right, first book, James Gray Jackson, business person who died in 1850. He wrote a book called, it was called, come on, man. An account of Timbuktu and hostile territories in the interior of Africa. It was written in 1820. So let's go here, page 475. It says Yehudi, a place of great trade. This place is reported to be inhabited by one of the lost tribes of Israel, possibly an immigration from the tribe of Judah. Yehuda in African Arabic signifies Judah. Yehudi signifies Jew. It is not impossible that many of the lost tribes of Israel may be found dispersed in the interior regions of Africa. When we shall become better acquainted with that continent, it is certain that some of the nations that possess the country eastward of Palestine, when the Israelites were our favorite nations, have immigrated to Africa. Right, so right here he's talking about, there's Israelites, Jews in the interior regions of Africa. Where's the interior regions? Chad, Cameroon, Central African Republic, Guinea, Gabon, Congo, Democratic Republic of Congo, Angola, Sao Tome and Principe. Matter of fact, the Portuguese Jews were sent to Sao Tome. All right, island of St. Thomas. And look, Yehuda, Google, Yehuda means what? Judah. All right, tribe of Judah, Yehudi, Jew. Okay? Let's get another book. Herman Moll, born in 1654. This is from the 1600s. Born in 1654. Herman Moll wrote a book. It was titled, it's a long title, Atlas Geographicus, Complete System of Geography, Ancient and Modern, containing what is the most use in all this, blah, blah, blah. Page 39. This is volume 4. Page 39. It's hard to read. Don't worry, I zoomed in. Check this out. That's what he had to say. Mind you, this is from the 1600s. It says, we shall treat of the blacks when we come to Guinea, Negro land, in the Cape of Good Hope, where they inhabit. Leo says there are other kingdoms on the southern frontiers of this country, which are inhabited by rich, industrious, and just sort of people. Judaism was the religion of the ancient Africans for a long time, and succeeded by Christianity. But Mohammedanism prevailed in the 208th year of the Hijra, when all the Jews, Christians, and professors of the African religion that could be found were put to death. Now, what do we learn from this, right? The blacks of Negro land in Guinea believed in Judaism, right? Then they converted to Christianity, then they became Muslims, all right? And those that professed this religion were put to death. Check this out. Yet in process of time, their incessant quarrels made them neglect Muhammad's law and revolt from the Caliph of Baghdad, for which they were severely punished by Mohammedan caliphs, who caused all their books to be burnt on suspicion that the knowledge of the arts and sciences prompted them to contemn Muhammad's law. As a matter of fact, I don't remember if it's the Igbo tribe or the Yoruba tribe, but one of them. I think they branded their own Torah because the Muslims were going around destroying their books. All right. Why is that? Because well, number one of the curses was we would be discontinued from our heritage and serve other gods, right? Whether it's believing in damn Muhammad, or believing in Allah from Islam, or believing in fake white Jesus. That's what ended up happening to our people. All right, next book. Let's continue it on. Next book, The Negroes and the Jews by Lenora E. Burson. The story of historical alliance of the two groups since the 1800s. All right, let's go to page 212. The Negroes and the Jews, Lenora E. Burson. It says, Negroes. Read this again. Negroes' claim to be Jewish is legitimate. The land of Israel is located in Western Asia and borders on North Africa. All the native inhabitants of that region were non-white. When Spain expelled its Jews in 1492, many of them went to Africa. This is facts. It seemed probable that some of them were brought later to the America as slaves. What? Some of them were brought later to America as slaves. What? Yeah, Israelites. The spirituals never sing of African rivers. It's always the Jordan or the Red Sea. What is she talking about? The Negro spirituals. They don't sing about African chiefs or kings. It's David or Moses or some other Jewish characters from the Bible. Why is that? Because we're the Israelites, man. Wake your ass up, Jacob. Wake up. Another one. Alessi Recluse. Born in 1830. Go to his book, The Earth and Its Inhabitants, Universal Geography by Alessi Recluse. All right. Page 175. It says, they have been compared to the Saracos, the Jews of West Africa, But unlike them, they chiefly are wholesale dealers carrying on a large caravan trade with Sierra Leone and Timbuktu and extending their expeditions from the Senegal to the lower Niger. Okay? He said the Sericos, check this out, were the Sericos victims of the transatlantic slave trade. So he said the Sericos were what? They were the Jews of West Africa. Well, were the Sericos victims of the transatlantic slave trade? Yes. Sericos were victims of the transatlantic slave trade. All right. Transatlantic slave trade involved transportation of millions of enslaved Africans from Africa to the Americas. And estimated that between 12 million and 18 million Africans were forcibly transported during this period. The majority of those who were transported were from Central and West Africa, and the process involved capture by African traders and subsequent sale to European slave traders. Yeah, the Hamites sold the Israelites to the so-called white man, the Edomites. All right, and damn sad, even more sad, some of the people that sold us were our own people, meaning Israelites. You know, but that's a whole other video. Next book is from 1890, and it's written in French. It's Geography Bulletin, 1890, Premier Quarter, 13th year. Right here, you see it right here. It's in French. I translated it. We're going to go to page 272 of this book. We're going to translate it in English. This is from French to English. So check this out. Page 272 down here. It reads, Wida, Fida, Wada, Wuda, Judah, or Ajuda is a town ancient, frequented since the 16th century of port slavers. Says, who gave him his name, its inhabitants were said to be Judaics, and they were indeed considered as a remnant of the scattered tribes of Israel. Once again, they knew about them being Israelites. All right, check this out. Wida, keyword Wida, Judah and Wida. Well, look at this. Kingdom of Wida. The kingdom of Wida, also known as Wida, Judah, Wuda, Wida, Wuda, Judah, right? Yoruba, Wuda, was a kingdom on the coast of West Africa in what is now Benin. It was a major slave trading area which exported more than 1 million Africans to the United States, the Caribbean, and Brazil before closing its trade in the 1860s. All right, now check this out. Wida and Judah. Now, Judah's already a giveaway. Let's go to the next book that speaks on this, right? Now, remember I said Wida and Judah. Check this out. This is an American historian named Arnold R. Hirsch, born in 1949. This is another American historian named Joseph Logsdon, born in 1938. They joined together and made a book called Creole New Orleans, Race and Americanization by Arnold R. Hirsch and Joseph Logsdon. Look at this, page 69. The Indies had a trading post at Judah, Gulf of Benin. There it competed with all the nations of Europe. The Portuguese were taking the upper hand at Judah. The kings were hostile to the Europeans and interpreting trade. The slave trade at Judah was becoming uncertain and unprofitable. He keeps calling it Judah. Page 67. The slave trade from Senegal intensified after 1725. Between February 1726 and January 1731, 12 slave ships from Senegal landed 3,259 slaves at Belize at the mouth of the Mississippi River. During the same period, one ship from Judah landed 464 slaves at the same port. Right? Check this out. Now check what he says here. Judah Wida. Right? Judah Wida. And this 1719, 200 slaves. It has a slave charter. Right? On the ships. All right? Now this goes back. Let's rewind real quick. Wida, Judah, ancient town. Inhabitants were said to be Judaics. They were indeed considered remnants of the scattered tribes of Israel. Yeah. So, yeah, the slaves were Israelites. All right. It makes me think of the scripture. Zephaniah 3 and 9. We'll start at 9. For then will I turn to the people of pure language, that they may call upon the name of the Lord Yahawah to serve him with one consent. From beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, my suppliants, even the daughters of my dispersed, shall bring mine offering. So it says beyond the rivers of Ethiopia. Let's look at the map. It says beyond the rivers of Ethiopia. Well, this is a sea. All right, these are oceans and a sea. If it's beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, that means it's this way. It's in the interior regions of Africa. That's where our people were scattered and then ultimately sent to the transatlantic slave trade, while some of our people remain in the African continent. Okay? Now let's look at some maps that document this fact. We'll go to Yale University. Yale is a very credible university, is it not? Yale University is known to have a wide variety of programs. The university is on the leading edge of science research, boasts one of the country's best performing arts and literature programs. All right. Extremely selective. 5.3% of applicants every year. Fewer than 100. 7 out of 100 students go into Yale. All right. Prestigious college. Ivy League. What does it have in its university? Yale University Library. Africa, performed by Sir Danville. A patronage of Duke of Orleans, revised and approved by Mr. Bowden E. Right? Check this out. This got the word Negritia on this map. This is the same map right here. Negritia. Negritia. Negritia, another word for Negritia is Negro land. Negritia, archaic term of European map and descriptions of West Africa, populated with Negroes. Okay? What consists of Negro land? Places like Senegal, Mauritania, Mali, Guinea, Guinea-Bissau, Sierra Leone, Liberia, Ivory Coast, Ghana, Burkina Faso, Niger, Nigeria, Chad, Cameroon, Benin, Togo, the Gambia. Right? Now check this out. Negritia, we got here at the bottom, it says Lam Lem, Yaori. Check this out. It says, according to Idris, the land hereabout was populated by Jews. This land was populated by Jews, and where it was in Negritia, Negro land. All right, by Jews. Let's look at another map. Another map by... Oh, come on, don't freeze on me, man. We cooking. Bear with me 1 second. Look at another map by Livio Sanudo, born in 1520, 1500s. Livio Sanudo, he made another map in the 1500s, which we'll go into. It was titled Africa Tabula, was that 12? 1588, and it was reprinted in 1889. Now, you can't see it right here, but it says Judarum Terra, right? Africa Tabula 12. I'm going to zoom in. It says Judarum Terra. Now, this I is supposed to be a J. In the medieval period, it was interchangeable, all right, with the Latin. So sometimes a U can be, or sometimes a V is a U, right? And sometimes a J, or sometimes an I is a J. So where you see the V's and you see the I's, this is J-U. So it's Judarum Terra, right? What does that translate to from Latin to English? Judarum Terra translates to land of the Jews, all right? Where is this at in Africa? Land of the Jews. Right, look at this. 1588, Jewish state of Judarum Terra, Africa. Atlas, Geographer, 1588. The Jews of Africa, especially in the 16th, 17th centuries, by Sidney Mendelssohn. This is Michigan State University, 1920. All right, Judarum Terra. They already know we're the Israelites, man. By I say they, I mean the elites. They already know who we are, man. All right, let's go to the Library of Congress, Research Library, Washington, D.C. Great resource for scholars and researchers, objective research. All right, Library of Congress, a new and accurate map of Negro land and the adjacent countries, also Upper Guinea, showing the principal European settlements distinguishing belonging to, blah, 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 when they were dividing up the land. So-called white man was. And here's the map. You see it right here. It says Negro land. We're going to go down to here. This is just, letting you know what it was about, who wrote it. 1693. Cartographer, another map. Right, this is from Library of Congress. A new accurate map of Negro land and adjacent countries. Right, it says what? Negro land, Kingdom of Judah, Wida, Slave Coast. It's funny too, I've seen these damn fake ass Christian apologists. Oh, Wida and Judah is not the same. Bullshit. There's multiple sources that documented that yeah, it's talking about Israelites. So yeah, man, that's it. That's all I got here, man. So that's my information there. Hopefully it was edifying. Be sure you share it to people. Like I said, I don't get paid off of this. I do it for the love of the game. Really, I do it because that's what we're ordered to do by Yahawah. So anyways, with that, I'm in this by saying peace to the 12. And I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to the Heavenly Father, the Most High, whose name is Yahawah. The name of his only begotten Son, yahawashi, who is ignorantly called Jesus Christ. And I want to say shalom, which means peace to you people listening and learning. To you brothers doing this work in truth and sincerity. To you elders who have been doing this thing before me. And for you people that are out there listening and learning. I changed that up a little bit right there. But yeah, man. It's undeniable. We are them people. Peace. Gone.